Hello, happy Friday, and here we go. Welcome to your NEWSMAX Daily for November 8th, 2024, the 313th day of the year, if you're superstitious, the second of 5 Fridays this month, and National STEM Day, a big day at schools across the country designed to encourage students to explore the fields of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM. Today is also National Cappuccino Day, celebrating not only the coffee itself, but the skill of the baristas who serve it up, especially when the heart or the leaf in the foam is just perfect, like the picture that I tweeted this morning. If you missed it, President Joe Biden, who campaigned on unity and transparency 4 years ago, but ran one of the most divisive and least transparent administrations, urged Americans yesterday to turn down the heat now that the election has been settled.
I know for some people, it's a time for victory, to state the obvious. For others, it's a time of loss. Campaigns are contests of competing visions. The country chooses one or the other. We accept the choice the country made. I've said many times, you can't love your country only when you win. You can't love your neighbor only when you agree. Something I hope we can do, no matter who you voted for, is see each other not as adversaries, but as fellow Americans. Bring down the temperature.
According to Newsweek, a caravan of more than 2,000 migrants making their way through Mexico, headed for the United States, have decided to turn around due to the election of Donald Trump. Yes, many are seeking asylum or economic opportunity, but they were also hoping to just walk right in. And on his second day as president-elect, Donald Trump already made history, naming his campaign manager, Susie Wiles, as his chief of staff. She will become the first woman ever to hold that position. In a statement, Trump called her tough, smart, innovative, and universally admired and respected. Chief of Staff obviously is the first of many appointments and matters of business to come. NEWSMAX host Bob Brooks breaks it down.
December 11th, once the election results have been verified, state governors, they're going to sign official documents to hand the electors the winning candidate. Okay, January 3rd, the incoming Congress, they're going to convene for the first time. At noon, January 3rd, they must also select a speaker before the state, most likely going to be Mike Johnson, as it appears that they are poised to keep the House. January 20th, the second dawn of the Trump era, it continues. January 20th, 2025, President-elect Trump officially becomes President Trump on Inauguration Day. I think it's safe to say that Trump heads to the White House more powerful than ever. We said it before. It appears Republicans are going to keep the House, the Senate, though that's not for sure yet. And this time, Trump knows a lot more than he did last time. He has admitted that. Maybe one of the things he would have been different, really know who he's bringing in. Many Republican members of the House and Senate, they have Trump, though, to thank. He gave them his endorsement. That put him into office. So you think he's going to get some loyalty there. The question is, can the Republicans unify? That's always been the issue in the House. We'll see. Anyways, what's going on now, right now? A 75-day transition period to build out his team before Inauguration Day arrives on January 20th. One of the top items on the to-do list, filling around, get this, 4,000 government positions. That's a lot, with political appointees, people who are specifically tapped for their jobs by Trump's team. Okay, that includes everyone from, obviously, his cabinet, the Secretary of State, other heads of cabinet departments, and those selected to serve part-time on boards and commissions, around 1,200, though. They need the presidential appointments to require. It's got to come from a Senate confirmation, which should be easier now with the Senate shifting to Republican control. This time, though, he's got his own people helping him. Good team here. Trump's transition team being led primarily by friends and family, including Bobby Kennedy Jr., former Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard, as well as the president-elect's adult sons, Don Jr., Eric Trump, also his running mates. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance is going to be there. The transition co-chairs are Cantor Fitzgerald, CEO Howard Lutnick, and Linda McMahon from the SBA. She headed that up last time. Now, he's only got 4 years, as we know, and Trump has said no time is going to be wasted, that everything he wants to have happen can happen so quickly. No doubt, though, he's going to need the right team around him to do just that.
Bob Brooks is co-host of American Agenda, afternoons at 2 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. And let's go to Finnerty with Rob Finnerty, who explains how DEI helped the Democrats lose.
The New Yorker had a famous magazine cover back in the 1970s. Basically, this was how a New Yorker viewed the rest of the world, or that was the impression. Anything west of the Hudson River was some vast wasteland. This picture is accurate to many in the Democratic Party. What they don't get is that west of the Hudson River is America. And that's the America that just elected Donald Trump. And Democrats, if they don't figure out how to win back America, the Democratic Party will become the bull moose party of the 21st century. It will cease to exist. And I mean that seriously. And that could happen. The second reason that Kamala lost, besides, of course, Kamala herself being a bad candidate, plain old bad policies. Joe and Kamala never seem to get that you can't rob Peter to pay Paul. The Wall Street Journal with a piece today. Democrats, blame yourselves. Democrats decided to use taxes from plumbers and welders to forgive college loans for lawyers and grad students. Joe, Kamala, you can't do that. Did you honestly think you were going to get away with that? They thought they were going to get away with it. And it didn't take long for the media to blame you for Kamala's loss, to blame you for not voting for Kamala because you are racist and you are sexist. How dare you not vote for the woman that we told you to vote for? Listen.
Let's be honest about this, okay? Let's be absolutely blunt about it. There were appeals to racism in this campaign, and there is racial bias in this country, and there is sexism in this country. And anybody who thinks that did not in any way impact on the outcome of this race is wrong.
Some of this is pure racism and misogyny against someone of her identity.
Not enough people in this country yet believe in the full equality of women.
It's really simple. Kamala didn't win on Tuesday because she was a really bad candidate, a liar, a plagiarist, and the American people could see right through her every time she walked out the door. And calling Americans sexist and racist is exactly why she lost in the first place. Remember when Michelle Obama said this?
Our motto is, when they go low, we go high.
When they go low, we go high. Michelle, that was a lie too, wasn't it? The truth is, Kamala is now historic for only one reason. She's the first ever black, Southeast Asian, Indian, Jamaican woman of color to lose a presidential election. Back in 2020, when Joe and Kamala took office, I remember hearing the media slobbering all over themselves. America just elected the first Southeast Asian, black, Jamaican woman of color. Please. When Joe and Kamala took office in 2020, nobody was talking about that. When Joe and Kamala won, most Americans said, wow, Joe and Kamala won, great, what's for dinner? And they moved on with their day. It's not about race, it's not about gender, and Democrats and the media just don't get that. Here's Mark Halperin today.
One of the most incredible and underappreciated and reported achievements of the Biden administration is the commitment to excellence and diversity. They did better far and away than any previous administration of finding great people who look like America. Donald Trump, I believe, doesn't have the same concern. It doesn't mean there won't be any diversity. But if he said, hey, we're going to announce 3 cabinet appointments today, they're all white men, he's not going to say, and no one around him is going to say, oh, we can't possibly do that. We have to have diversity in every announcement. I think the press secretary will be a woman. I think the chief of staff will be a woman. I think you'll see a lot of white men in a lot of big jobs.
The commitment to excellence in diversity, finding great people who look like America. That's what Mark said. 36 hours after the election, my friend Mark Halperin is already concerned about diversity in Donald Trump's cabinet, which is why Joe got booted and Kamala lost on Tuesday. Mark, it was because Joe and Kamala surrounded themselves with the wrong people that this whole thing, this whole charade came undone. There is too much at stake. I don't care what you look like. I want the right people in the right jobs. Were people like Karine Jean-Pierre, Rachel Levine, Sam Brinton, remember the FBI director Kimberly Cheadle, Alejandro Mayorkas, Kamala Harris herself, were they really the right people for the job? Were they the most qualified, or were they hired based on one thing that none of us can control, skin color and our gender? I'll let you decide at home. But if you were going to have heart surgery, would you look for a hospital with the most diverse staff, or would you look for a hospital with the best doctor?
That is Rob Finnerty, host of Finnerty, 8 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax, 8 p.m., because some of you are still used to watching him in the morning. And I'm going to fast forward to the end because this is really, really good stuff from Rob, and it's obvious now that a lot of Americans share the same sentiment.
They, them is not real. You and I are. Men don't have babies, women do. And equity means nothing if you don't live in reality. When I was a kid, most Americans got their news from three people: Dan Rather, Tom Brokaw, Peter Jennings, all left-leaning and all generally agreed on what the news was that day. They presented it a little bit differently, but that's all changed. Now Americans have more options, and clearly too many Americans are spending their time getting everything they hear about the world from one place, and that needs to change. We have an incredibly hard time getting Democrats to join us here on Newsmax, and yet every Sunday, there's J.D. Vance on CNN or House Speaker Mike Johnson on NBC. Kamala never came on Newsmax once. We're the fourth biggest network on the planet. Not once. That's a problem. You think maybe if you want to win people over, you might show a modicum of courage and sit down in front of people that don't agree with you? That needs to change. Kamala was part of the problem. But the beautiful part of all of this for Donald Trump right now is that he never has to run for office again. He just won his last election, meaning he doesn't need the media. Most politicians are always thinking about their next election, meaning they've got to play nice with the media. Not Donald Trump. If MSNBC calls Trump for an interview, he can ignore them. If the New York Times calls Trump for an interview, he can ignore them. If CNN or David Muir invite him on, guess what? He can ignore them. And if they don't like it, if they complain about it, Donald Trump can say, well, I learned from the very best how to avoid the media and how to avoid interviews. I learned from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
Excellent, excellent points from Rob Finnerty. Catch him tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern. If you are a Democrat, an independent, a Green Partier, a Never Trumper, whatever, all Americans should be happy that we now have, as he mentioned, a very rare occasion. We have a president, like him or not, who is not going to spend half of his term trying to get reelected. That should be a good thing for everyone. We're on day 3 now, right? You're gloating. You're upset. I get it. But come Monday, it's time to start making lemonade out of the lemons, as the great Zig Ziglar once told me. If you don't know who that is, go look it up. Meanwhile, new today, the Harris-Walz campaign somehow lost the race, deep in debt. More from Carl Higbie and South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem.
And these are the people who are vying to run our economy, by the way. Kamala Harris, reportedly, this woman raised like billions and billions of dollars. She's finishing $20 million in debt. It's just like they just blew through this stuff, paying J-Lo and Beyonce and Cardi B and whoever, all these tons of staffers. They had like 500 people on their social media team. Trump had 4 autistic people.
Yeah, well, it's not surprising to me that they took on this kind of debt, because look how they drove our country further and further into debt, and then borrowed money from countries that hate us, like China, to prop up our economy and support them. So it's going to be a big hole for her to dig out of. But I think that what we recognize is fiscal policy works. Our economy needs to thrive. President Trump knows how to do that. And we're going to get the train back on the tracks. We've got a huge opportunity here to do big things. And I just talked to President Trump a couple of minutes ago, and he was talking about doing some amazing things immediately. He's already putting his policies in place, getting his executive orders ready for day one, and putting the right people into key positions. So his number one priority is going to be this border. We've got to secure our country, and we've got to get the murderers and terrorists and rapists out of this country and make America safe again. That's really what his goal is, and I'm just so proud of him that he's working so hard at it immediately.
No, and we need that, too, because we can't dilly-dally like the last time when he was in for 2 years. We get almost nothing done that was on his agenda. The other thing, too, is Trump's victory, just to like zoom out here in perspective, this is like the most powerful political image in modern era. I mean, he defeated the Biden dynasty, the Obama dynasty, Cheney dynasty, Clinton, Bush. These people, he just put them in the grave politically. And this includes like entire establishments in both parties. His popular vote and electoral landslide, that's the biggest thing since 1988. I mean, 1800 was the last time somebody made a comeback after losing. How much more is it going to take to get these DC-ites, even the moderate Republicans, to realize, like, yes, we got to run the table on Democrats?
You know, I've told people for years, President Trump broke politics. He broke it. And we're not going back to the way that it used to be when the Bushes and Cheneys and Obamas were around. It's a good thing that he broke it. He's much more genuine and honest than they ever were. He talks to people and answers their questions and hears their concerns, and then he takes action. He's a decision maker. That's wonderful. Most of the politicians I know in my life, they try to pretend to be something that they're not. Most of them, when they're running for office, they go throw on a hard hat or go find a barn and a pair of jeans and say, golly shucks, geez, I'm just like you. But they're not. They're secretly trying to pretend to be something because they think that the American people are stupid. President Trump doesn't. He came down a golden escalator to announce that he was going to run for president, and he was just himself and said, vote for me. I can fix it. I can make you wealthy. I can keep you safe. I will stand in the way when they come and try to destroy you. I will fight for you. And that's exactly what he did. And we've got an exciting 4 years ahead of us. I'm looking forward to his leadership again.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we all are, even some Democrats that are paying a little much. I loved it. He went to like the Iowa State Fair in a business suit, had a better conversation than Jeb Bush in a flannel. It was great. Governor Kristi Noem, pleasure.
Thank you, Carl.
South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem on Newsmax with Carl Higbie. Carl mentioned Jeb Bush, right? Low energy Jeb. I'm not sure if Jeb is up to something, but unlike his brother, he has been very supportive of Trump's election on X. And late yesterday, he tweeted that Susie Wiles is a great choice and will make a great chief of staff. At one of Donald Trump's many rallies in Pennsylvania last week, former Pittsburgh Pirates major leaguer Roberto Clemente Jr., a native Puerto Rican, was a guest speaker. Yesterday, he spoke with Sean Kreisman and Emma Reckenberg on Newsmax's National Report.
Common sense. It's actually what led us to be here today. I truly believe that, when you choose a horse to run a race like the Kentucky Derby that never won a race, that was a big mistake. I truly believe that the messaging from Donald J. Trump was very clear. It was transparent. This is what I want to do for this country. He has proven that when he was president before. And I can tell you that we suffered a shift here because of how we now have educated ourselves and what's the best for our families and this country. So we are in a new beginning to make this nation of ours a better place again.
Roberto, we're showing some video there with you and Donald Trump. There are a number of reports that cite the various reasons, by the way, in which he would have gained historic ground with the Hispanic and Latino communities here. But you spoke at one of the final rallies in Pittsburgh, of course, in Pennsylvania. Why do you think your message resonated so well with these voters?
I live in Pennsylvania. I know what the common and working class men and women are suffering, are going through, and they need a change. We all need a change. I have 3 young children that live here in Pennsylvania as well, and I know what's going on. I like I said, it's a godsend of a time to be able to have this shift because we needed that change for the sake of our children, our schools, our health. This is something that we are suffering mental health crisis in this country. And Bobby Kennedy Jr., for me, is a big part of why actually I jumped on board, because I truly believe that overall we are in a crisis of health, illness, stress, because of what people are going through. And we need to change that and make America healthy again.
Roberto Clemente Jr. on Newsmax. In the home stretch of the presidential campaign, there was a lot of talk about the team, right? Not just the president, but the team. Elon, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, which was the deciding factor for Clemente.
I want to get back to the media coverage that we've seen and some of that soundbite that we played earlier. Why do you believe that the left seemingly sees everything through a lens of gender, everything through a lens of race, instead of perhaps policy like you were mentioning? Why is it always about race, seemingly?
I believe that it's an attempt. It's actually something that right now is the only thing that they have left in terms of the media and the rhetoric. I think that is the part that they have manipulated a lot of people for a long time, but the people have woken up and are seeing through it. The messaging is not working any longer. Like I said, it's common sense. You take a look at the facts, take a look at the numbers that came through voting for President Trump. It's because we know better than what they're giving us. And I can tell you that I'm very excited that this man is going to do something very special for this country. And it's going to be a historic moment when he leaves office as perhaps the best administration that this nation has ever seen.
Donald Trump is a billionaire, right? And he's never pretended to be someone that he's not. You've had a chance to obviously speak with him there, maybe get to know him more personally. What is it that you see in the former president, now president-elect, that perhaps the media is missing?
You know, I compare him, he might not mind this, but I compare him to Mr. George Steinbrenner, the owner of the New York Yankees, who actually was perhaps the best owner of a franchise in history, because George believed in his team. He believed in winning. He loved winning. He hated losing. And he doubled down, put his money where his mouth was. And this is the same approach that President Trump has for this country, the love that he has. So when I was able to get to him and see him, the same thing happened to me when I met George Steinbrenner for the first time. And it's a hard shell, but the inside is love, passion, integrity. And the messaging that I always had before, years and years ago, was completely wrong. So I truly believe that people need to look through and past the tone, how he speaks, because what's behind that hood is a beautiful man that wants this country to be the better country that he can leave behind.
Former major leaguer and Pennsylvania resident Roberto Clemente Jr. on NEWSMAX. As of this morning, Trump said he's spoken to around 70 world leaders, but still missing from that list, as I mentioned yesterday, is Vladimir Putin. The Russian president actually gave an address to his nation overnight, and in that address, he congratulated Trump. He also said that he is ready to meet with the president-elect. If Putin really means it, based on everything that Donald Trump has said, you would imagine that meeting will happen pretty quickly. President Zelensky of Ukraine, who obviously wants the war to end as well, has said that he will not make any concessions to Russia, though, to end the war. After his speech in the Rose Garden yesterday, President Biden has nothing on his calendar today outside of his daily briefing. He's headed home to Delaware for the weekend with the First Lady. And what the heck is going on in Arizona? The Senate race still undecided between Republican Kari Lake and Democrat Ruben Gallego, separated by about a 0.5 percentage point. The eventual winner of that race will fill the seat vacated by Kristen Sinema, who was elected as a Democrat, then switched to become an independent. A win by Kari Lake would obviously add to the majority that the Republicans now have. The Democrats desperately want to hold on to another seat. And there were some major overseas developments overnight. Israel's foreign minister says hundreds of Jewish supporters of an Israeli soccer team were ambushed and brutally attacked after a soccer match in Amsterdam. The Israeli government has now sent 2 planes to Amsterdam to rescue Israeli citizens. There's a lot of video of what's happening there going around on social media, or by now, by the time you listen to this, you've probably seen it in the news. And obviously, the violence against the Jews there is not simply because of the outcome of the soccer match. On Wall Street, stock markets took a breather this morning after the huge post-election rally that we've had. The Dow was a little bit higher at the open. The S&P and the NASDAQ was slightly lower. Be sure to keep up with all of the news all day today and all weekend on NEWSMAX, NEWSMAX 2, and at NEWSMAX.com. Make sure you're streaming on NEWSMAX Plus to get the most complete lineup of all your favorite shows, hosts, and great expert analysis. NEWSMAXPlus.com. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you, as always, for checking out the NEWSMAX Daily. I appreciate that. At @radio_Marino, if you have a comment, question, concern, enjoy your weekend doing whatever it is you love to do. Among the many sports options, huge race in Phoenix. Go Joey Logano. I'm not going to say go Dolphins because they're on Monday Night Football, so we'll save that for Monday. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute. every day. You need the app, the NEWSMAX app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Hey, it's Jerry Callahan from The Callahan Show. You can listen to us every day. We react to the latest news, politics, sports, and all the madness in the world. I'll give you my opinion with a little edge, a little attitude. I'm an unapologetic right-winger, trapped behind enemy lines in deep blue Boston, so I'm used to taking on the mainstream media mob. You can hear us anywhere you get your podcast, or you can listen every day at newsmax.com/listen.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is NEWSMAX. It's real news for real people.